All right, happy March 11th, everybody. This is part 2 of earthquake and tsunami talk and meltdown talk with Coast to Coast, John B. Wells, and a guy who's got a lot of experience with the military and radiation. I've got all his achievements, but it was a long list, and they might come back up. In any case, we are now in the town of Montauk, and everything is beautiful except for those chemtrails that are lingering in the air. Excuse me. But I hope everybody had a beautiful weekend and enjoyed the extra psychic ability with those gamma rays coming in, extra gamma rays. All right, ready? Here we go.
We have returned with Douglas Dietrich, and Douglas, we had 14 points to cover. What number are we on?
Oh, we're close to number 6, so we're going good. And,
all right, good. Well, you were talking about the Chinese connection, and then I wanted to return to Stuxnet and the possibility that was some sort of a okay, I'll say
a
it.
cyber weapon.
Yeah.
Yes, it certainly was. But let's start off with why a lot of people have a misconception of Japan's economy. Basically, Japan's current account surplus, which is the widest measure of its trade, totaled $196 billion in 2010, the last time that it was accurately measured, and that was 3 times its amount since 1989. And by comparison, America's current account deficit ballooned from $99 billion at the beginning of the 1990s to $471 billion today. And everybody thought that the rise of China would make Japan a major loser and the United States a major winner, but it's turned out just the opposite. Japan increased its exports to China more than 14-fold since the 1990s, and Chinese-Japanese bilateral trade remains in balance. So it divested in the United States, it revested in China, and gave them the technology behind which they mass-produce the consumer goods that we buy. So even though everything we have that's made in China, in truth, it's made in Japan, or rather, more accurately, designed in Japan in terms of the high technologies, high-tech materials, experimental materials that are used to make its manufacturing facilities in China. They're built by the Japanese. So aside from that, the unemployment rate in Japan is only 4.2%, half that of the United States, and measured from the end of the 1989, the early 1990s, the yen has risen 87% against the U.S. dollar and 94% against the British pound. And as a result, it's made remarkable strides in its infrastructure. Basically, it has the fastest internet in the world, and the longest life expectancy. Basically, people now have increased by about 4.2 years in terms of their life expectancy. The longest in the world is in Japan. So they were living very fat, very happy until this happened. And one of the reasons that this catastrophe happened was due to Stuxnet, also pronounced as Stuxnet. And Stuxnet was, of course, a cyber weapon that was in the minds of many computer engineers for quite some time, just like the idea of an atomic bomb existed in fiction decades before it was built in terms of reality. And so what happened was a cohesive effort of highly funded hackers and programmers from around the world were employed by the United States in consultation to Israeli Mossad to design Stuxnet to take down the Iranian centrifuges in their nuclear enrichment facilities. So there's only a few nations in the world that could do this: Japan, China, Russia, England, a few other European countries, and of course the United States and Israel. Now, a man named Ralph Langner has explained Stuxnet to the media 100 times, but he's never explained the mechanism of the Stuxnet malware attack. Either he doesn't know or he fears to state it. Well, I'm going to state it right now. And basically, in definition, there's 2 basic terror-targeted systems of Stuxnet-modeled cyber weapons: industrial control systems and networks. Now, an ICS is a control system designed for controlling large electromechanical systems, originally designed for automated automobile assembly lines. A network is exemplified by the internet. Information is stored and rendered retrievable. Now, the central heart of every ICS, or industrial control system, is a module termed a PLC, a programmable logic computer. And the PLC possesses a programmable memory, which is write always, which means it can be reprogrammed on the fly instantaneously by programmers. And the disadvantage is it's always subject to sabotage. So as a result, this is what they took advantage of with the rewritable memories, and the Stuxnet malware reprogrammed the memories of the programmable logic computers of the industrial control systems of the Natanz nuclear enhancement facility in Iran, causing destruction of 1,000 centrifuges. And it made its way into the computers and the processing plants by flash drives that the employees brought home and connected into their own PCs, and it went through the internet. So this is what happened over in Japan. It could happen at any nuclear facility, but what made Japan so special was that Stuxnet was designed to attack United German Siemens-designed industrial control systems, because those are what had been sold to Iran. These United German Siemens industrial control systems had also been sold to Japan. Those were the same control systems that worked the Fukashima Daiichi plant. Now, in terms of artificially generated earthquakes, because I want to emphasize that the meltdown occurred as a result of the earthquake. The cooling systems could not fight the meltdown because of Stuxnet. All this happened 21 minutes before the tsunami. But in terms of artificially generated earthquakes, there was a cult in Japan known as Yomu Shinrikyo, the Supreme Truth Cult, run by a man named Asahara Shoko, known as Shoko Asahara in America, where they put the first name before the family name. And people remember them for the Tokyo gas attack.
Sure.
But the reality was that they were an enormously wealthy cult with 10,000 members in Japan, 40,000 worldwide, and 30,000 members in Russia alone. And they began to purchase highly classified Tesla-derived technology energy weapon systems from the RSIS, the Russian Commonwealth of Independent States, the administrative body established to oversee the bankruptcy and dissolution of assets of the former Soviet Union. And the cash-strapped KGB and military began to sell them to Aum Shinrikyo in the 1990s. So what had happened was that everyone knew that the Aum Shinrikyo cultists were fascinated with energy weapons. The Japanese government calculated that they had $1 billion in assets, and they began to investigate basically the Tesla technology in the United States. See, what had happened was, of course, people know of Tesla's development of HARP-type technology. Now, HARP has nothing to do with generating earthquakes, despite what a lot of people say. HARP's original acronym stands for High Frequency Activated Auroral Atmospheric Resonance Research Projection Program. And it uses ELF, extremely low frequency waves, for EPT, or Earth Penetrating Tomography, to allow the possible prediction of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. That's one of its many functions. It's got at least half a dozen of them. But its subterranean surveying capabilities doesn't mean that it can create earthquakes. Tesla, however, is recorded in history undeniably to have generated earthquakes using EMP, or electromagnetic pulsation. It's how he almost brought down a skyscraper in New York City. Now, everyone attested that this was undeniable because he had a control for it, the size of a TV remote, that he turned the generator mechanism on with. It was inside of a skyscraper. He almost shook it to the ground. He would have done so if he hadn't turned the control off. Everybody witnessed it. All of these reporters who were surrounding him, photographs were taken. Everybody knew that he could do what he claimed to do, which was to bring down a city if he wanted to. It was the ultimate terror weapon. And what happened was in 1993, representatives of the cult of Yomu Shinrikyo visited the headquarters of the International Tesla Society in New York City, seeking patents and documents. But all such research notes had been seized by the U.S. government's OAP, the Office of Alien Property, which was a bureaucracy contemporarily established to oversee federal seizures of all real, fiscal, and material properties of Japanese Americans illegally stripped of the U.S. citizenship en masse in 1942. Tesla died in 1943, and all of his papers were taken by this office, and they've remained under national security status ever since. So what happened was the Aum Shinrikyo turned to the Soviets, and in 1993, an earthquake was reported in Western Australia, the first ever recorded recorded there. Like New York City, there's no seismic fault lines in that area, and earthquake was physically impossible. It was linked with sightings and strange beams of light. Investigations showed that the earthquake's epicenter was Banjawarn Sheep Station, which had been purchased weeks earlier by the Yomu Shinrikyo cult, which had taken up where the Soviets had left off in the secret energy weapons arms race with the United States. And then what had happened was that on January 8th of 1995, the Holy Pope of Yomu Shinrikyo, Asahara Shoko, announced in a radio broadcast that Japan will be attacked. That's the term he used, attacked by an earthquake in 1995. And on radio broadcast, he said on over national airwaves in Japan, the most likely place will be Osaka Kobe. 9 days after this prophecy, the port city of Osaka Kobe, the fifth largest city in Japan with a population of 6 million, was hit by one of the worst superquakes in Japanese history. Entire apartment blocks collapsed within seconds. The elevated Hanshin Highway connecting Osaka and Kobe together collapsed within seconds. And basically, it affected the entire metropolitan area of that zone. And basically, on January 17th of 1995, it left 7,000 dead, 30,000 injured, 300,000 dislocated Japanese in its wake, and $100 billion in damage. To put this into perspective, Fukushima Daiichi left 20,000 dead, which makes it much worse. But Fukushima Daiichi is nothing compared to the great natural earthquake that hit Tokyo, Yokohama in 1923, the year my mother was born. My mother was born in Tokyo on the very year and the very place of the earthquake in which 120,000 people died. And that was the largest earthquake in Japanese history. That was totally natural. But these artificially generated earthquakes are not that powerful, but they're more than powerful enough. At that point, Japan concluded that Supreme Leader Asahara Shoko's public prediction of the 117 Kobe quake attack was not precognition, but instead the pronouncement of his possession of an incalculably powerful weapon of terror. And they knew that Tokyo was going to be next. And ultimately, they engineered, according to many people, a Tokyo gas attack, which enabled them to have the justification to crack down on the cult and ultimately dismember it and outlaw it. And as a matter of fact, the United States wound up investigating it because of their attempts to get energy weapons from the United States. And as a matter of fact, it was investigated by U.S. authorities that ultimately declared it a terrorist organization after 9/11. Because there was suspicion that there may have been connection with earthquake generation technology. And these United States Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations were conducted under chairmanship of Senator Sam Nunn. They were commenced on March 20th of 1995, and 6 years later, in direct response to 9/11, U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell formally labeled Omu Shinrikyo a terrorist organization and froze their monetary assets in the United States.
Okay, I'm going to have to freeze it there because I am rapidly approaching the end of my time on this YouTube video. So we just heard a very quick list of a lot of things that you should be starting to think about. Possibilities of cyber attacks to make problems worse. In this world that we live in. But, this is just to be aware. This is not to stress over because, obviously you had nothing to do with it and you have nothing to do with the solving of it. But your awareness of it is actually part of the solving, part of the problem. It's just the fact that, they're just doing it in front of everybody's face because nobody's paying attention. If you start paying attention, they're not going to be able to do it so easily. So, let's just start keeping our ears open, breathing deep, feeling the energy from the planet and the sun and the moon that was out this morning was beautiful. And it's a beautiful day. We lost an hour yesterday and you feel it, which goes back to Maurice Cotterell's book, Future Science, that when your melatonin's messed up because of a change in time, it freaks your whole body a little bit. My friend Judy was messed up all day yesterday. She couldn't get her head straight. And I told her, between that and the solar flares with the extra radiation coming in, it's definitely, taking your mind off of the, immediate important stuff that you think of, and had her thinking a lot more about, issues that she had feelings about. In any case, I'm going to wrap this up. I love you guys. Half your body weight in ounces of water. Soak your nuts in that water, and then it'll be even more delicious. And 6 things: breathe, eat, drink, say, do, think. And, love everyone every day. And stress nothing. Alright, I love you guys. See ya.